A few years ago, when I was still into skating, my friends and I would hit up this skate park almost every day after school. It was a decent spot, not too crowded, kind of tucked away in the back of this old park. The thing is, it had a bit of a reputation. People used to say weird stuff happened there at night. There were always rumors about accidents or people getting hurt, but I never took it seriously. Just skater talk, you know? One day, we stayed later than usual. It was autumn, so the sun was setting earlier, and by the time we realized how dark it was, we were pretty much the only ones left. It was me, my buddy Kyle, and another dude we skated with sometimes, Zach. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. No traffic, no kids around, just us and the sound of our boards. Kyle decided to go for one last trick on the quarter pipe before we packed up. As he was about to drop in, we all heard it. A loud screech, like metal grinding against metal. It wasn't any of us, though. Zach and I were just standing there. It came from the other side of the park, near the fence where there was this old beat-up half pipe that nobody really used anymore. We looked over, expecting to see someone messing around, but there was no one there. The half pipe was empty. Kyle laughed it off, saying it was probably the wind or something, but the sound was too distinct. It wasn't random. It was like someone had just wiped out, hard. Kyle dropped in anyway, but after his run, we all felt like something was off. There was this tension in the air, like we were being watched. I thought it was just because it was getting late, but it felt heavier than that. Zach suddenly pointed toward the fence and said, "Yo, do you see that?" I looked over, and there was a shadow standing by the half pipe. At first, I thought it was a person, but it was too tall and thin, like really thin, almost stretched out. It wasn't moving, just standing there, perfectly still, like it was watching us. None of us said a word for a second, just staring at it. The streetlight flickered, and when it came back on, the shadow was gone. We were all on edge now, so we decided to call it a night. We grabbed our boards and started heading out, but as we walked past the half pipe to leave, Kyle stopped dead in his tracks. There was a skateboard lying there at the base of the ramp. The weird thing, it wasn't one of ours. It was old, like really old. The grip tape was worn down, and the wheels were barely attached, all rusted and messed up. It looked like it hadn't been used in years. Kyle bent down to check it out, but Zach grabbed his arm and said, "Dude, don't touch that." I could tell Zach was freaked out, and honestly, I was too. But Kyle just laughed and said, "It's probably just some kid's old board." He picked it up anyway, even though we were telling him to leave it alone. The second he lifted it, the screeching sound came back, louder this time, like it was right next to us. It was ear-piercing. We all jumped, and Kyle dropped the board. It hit the ground with this weird thud, like it weighed a ton. We looked around, but there was no one else in the park, just that same empty space by the fence. That's when we heard a voice. It was faint, but we all heard it. It was a whisper, coming from the direction of the half pipe. It sounded like a kid. We couldn't make out what it was saying at first, but as we stood there frozen, it got clearer. "Come back." Over and over again, like a chant. "Come back, come back." I don't know what made me look down, but when I did, I noticed something was written on the half pipe in faded spray paint. It said Mike 2006. That didn't mean anything to me at the time. But then Zach goes pale and says, "Dude, that's the kid." Apparently there was this story about a kid named Mike who used to skate at that park. He'd wiped out bad on the half pipe, cracked his head open, and died. I'd heard it before, but never paid attention to it. Figured it was just one of those stories to freak out new skaters. But standing there, hearing that voice, it didn't feel like just a story anymore. We didn't stick around after that. We grabbed our stuff and bolted. As we were leaving, I swear I heard the wheels of that old board rolling behind us, like someone was following us out. But when I looked back, nothing was there, just the empty skate park. We never went back to that spot after dark again. And every time I think about it, I can still hear that voice whispering, "Come back,